You're listening to episode 15 of the Confident Rider podcast with Jane Pike. Hello, fabulous human. Welcome back to the Confident Rider podcast. Today is awesome because we get to hang out with one of my favourite people in the world, Robyn Schiller. Robyn is part of the dynamic team behind World Schiller Performance Horsemanship. She is an extremely accomplished horsewoman in her own right, having been part of the Australian reining team for the World Equestrian Games last year, amongst many other accolades. I've just been reading about them in the Western riding world. Not only that, but she's just an extraordinary person. So I'm really excited to be able to share some of her wisdom and insight from not only her competition experiences, but her journey with anxiety. And we also touch on something really exciting that she's been up to, which is a Brené Brown training. She's been recently qualified or certified as a Dare to Lead facilitator. So we get into that as well. Before I unleash you on our conversation, I also want to let you know that we are having a giveaway over on Instagram where you can win a subscription to World Schiller Performance Horsemanship and a copy of Brené Brown's book, Braving the Wilderness. It seemed like the perfect time to celebrate her work as well, seeing as though Robyn has just been involved with her and is also part of bringing that work further out into the world. So if you jump on my Instagram at confident_rider, you will see all of the details there. Have a fabulous time listening. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, and I really hope that you get a lot out of it. I am here with the fabulous Robyn Schiller, who is one of my favourite people in the world and also happens to be a very accomplished horse. Would you call yourself a horse trainer, Robyn? How would you describe yourself?
Not a horse trainer. I am a horse. What am I? I'm a horse person. I'm a competitor. Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always been involved in the horses since I was itty bitty. Even before I walked, I rode on the front of my mom's saddle.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so cool. I've got so many of those old Polaroid photos of me riding in what would be described as fairly precarious safety positions these days.
For sure, yes.
The types that would be criticised quite heavily on Facebook. So for those that perhaps aren't familiar with you, you are part of the dynamic duo or trio now actually, because Tyler's in on the game too, that runs World Schiller Performance Horsemanship. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, my background was in human resources. So for most of our marriage, 25-year marriage, I had an HR job outside of what Warwick did, and he trained horses. And I had the real job because anybody who trains horses knows you get about 10 cents an hour for that and no benefits. Yeah. So somebody had to be the adult. So that was me. Until we moved to Australia at the end of 2006 to help with a lot of things, all reining related. And we were there for 4 years, moved back at the end of 2010. I got one of my old HR positions back as a consultant. And
so you're in California now?
Yeah, in California. I live right down the street from my parents, which was a big factor in our returning. They're getting older and we wanted to be close to them. I was homesick. And so when we got back, Warwick had to kind of start over with the horse training. And he did that. And this is when apps were all the rage. And so I remember actually sitting around our rental house, around the fire pit in the back. And we were like brainstorming, me, him, and our son, Tyler, brainstorming ways that, what could we do? We should do an app. And Warwick said, no, I think I'll start just filming YouTube videos. I'll get horses in for training and I'll just try to show people how easy this is when you understand the principles behind horse training. I'll just show him how easy it is to get this stuff. And so he started with his iPhone, started making videos, putting them up on YouTube.
It was the sliding doors moment.
Yeah. And at the time, we actually had a customer, a reining customer, who was a graphic designer and kind of marketing person. And so she is actually the one who suggested, after the YouTube channel got going, she's like, you need longer videos. Why don't you start a subscription? And I think we were one of the first horse training people to start a subscription like we have now. And
I was going to say, you must have been one of the originals, because now it's becoming a little bit more of a thing to do. But back at the stage that you started it out, it really wasn't.
Yeah, 2012, it's been 7 years. So a few years into it, it was growing to the point where that, plus the demand for him to have clinics everywhere around the world, it was really starting to become more of a full-time position for somebody to do all of that. So I quit my corporate job and came to work for him in 2014. So it's been it's been 5 years. It was July. So it's been 5 years now.
In terms of that, I know it's a crazy journey, huh? In terms of that escalation of interest in what it is that you guys were doing, was there one horse or a series that really took off or went viral, or what? Was it a slower build than that, or was there something kind of obvious that sparked the fire?
Well, I mean, I think at the beginning he had an Andalusian that came in, and that the Andalusian series is still one of the most popular video series on the library, I think because it's the most comprehensive as far as groundwork. But a couple of years ago, there's been this shift, and I don't know if you want to talk about the transformational versus transactional.
Totally.
But yeah, so this is where we were saying Warwick used to be a skills-based trainer, still is, but now the focus is more towards relationship. And that was due to a horse that we purchased, that all of the skills-based things that he used to do with the groundwork and helping horses, it didn't work with this horse. So it made him look outside, and down the rabbit holes he's gone, and it ended up being the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah. So and this is kind of the whole thread of where we're going to take things moving forward. But if we think about your own journey with horses and the evolution of that also. So you started riding at a very young age because your mum rides, right? Is she? Yep. It's all in the family. She's still riding.
Yeah, she still rides.
And were you mainly competition focused in your early years? Yeah.
So I started competing when I was 5.
Oh, wow. Okay. And always in reining?
No, I was always Western, but back then it was, equitation and Western pleasure and trail and showmanship. And then it was only once I married Warwick that I started doing the reining.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm learning lots of jewels. So part of the, what's the word that I'm looking for? The high point, I guess, especially for me, because I got to join you on this journey, was that you and Warwick were part of the Australian team, the Australian reining team for the World Equestrian Games last year. And I think what was really special for me about that was the ethos behind your journey, and part of the motivation for getting there was to actually show to yourselves and perhaps to others as a byproduct of that process that it's possible to have a really great ethical relationship with your horse and compete at the highest level simultaneously. And that evolution of the relationship pathway, was that what brought that about, do you think? Or do you want to speak a little bit to that?
So with the World Equestrian Games, I guess up until about 3 years ago, till Warwick had the shift, I was more of a skills-based and he was more of a skills-based. The reining is very much skills-based, obedience-based. The horses, the main paragraph of the reining handbook is that horses need to be willingly guided and dictated to completely. So basically it's an obedience task. And because there is no real reason for a horse to do what what we're asking them to do, right? Instead, like working a cow, at least they have a reason to roll back on their hocks and things like that. With the reining, it is obedience. They can enjoy it, yes. And I guess after that shift, and we had this opportunity to be part of the World Equestrian Games team, where our minds were headed were, let's do this but let's do it in a way that we feel good about the horses and their welfare. And that meant that we were going to use our own horses. So we had an opportunity to borrow horses. And we could have done that. It might have put us in a better position result-wise if we had done that. But for us, it was more about, let's prove to ourselves and to others that we can take horses that live together in a herd. We can take them to the highest level of the sport and have a connection with the horse, have a great relationship with the horse, and have actually what happened was the best results we've ever had.
So cool. It was amazing to be a part of. Just to clarify as well, because this is something that I was unaware of. In reining, it is the rider that qualifies for the World Equestrian Games, not the combination. So you are able to qualify independently as Robyn, and then, like you say, you could have borrowed a horse or acquired a horse. Would that have been necessary to be from Australia, or could that have been from anywhere?
Oh, no, it could have been anywhere.
Okay, so it's quite a unique thing that you guys were actually riding your own horses on the team. Like, I think, did that exist on any other team that you're aware of?
I think maybe one of the South American, maybe Chile. I think maybe he had his own horse, but I think we were, like, maybe us three had our own horses.
Yeah, you're the outliers.
We were definitely the outliers. We were also, I'm pretty much certain that we were the only ones that had unclipped horses.
Yeah, right. They looked magnificent.
They did.
How was the whole experience for you?
Surreal. One of the top 3 moments or 3 experiences in my life. And
Mine too, actually.
Yeah.
And I didn't even ride.
And it's interesting because after, in reflection, and you've helped me with this too, you know, the reflection of it and the moving forward from here, I realized that it's about a feeling. What I have come to realize is that I used to think that I competed to win because I liked the feeling of winning. I guess I didn't think about it that way. I just liked winning. And really what I liked was the accomplishment of it. And I had the same accomplishment. I had the same feeling as if I'd won the biggest thing I'd ever won, just with what we did at WEG. And we didn't win. We did way better than we thought, and we did better than we'd ever done. We have reached our personal best. But it was really interesting for me to have felt that joy and accomplishment and pride, and I didn't bring home a ribbon. First time that's ever really happened.
Yeah, it was, not to make it about me, but just as part of the crew around you, and even watching, I had that same sense of pride and joy as if it was me out there. Like, really, the level of investment felt that way. And I still, even looking at the photos of it, I know Warwick posted a photo in the Facebook group a couple of days ago where you had just heard the score, or we all had just heard the score, and there was absolute elation from everyone around. And it was so real, you know, like I get a big smile on my face just thinking about it. But there's so much to be said for that, you know, assembling the right people around you and taking the time to really care for yourself and your horse in the lead up in a way that, you know, that is operating within a framework that works for you. I think it's such a powerful thing to do.
I love that picture. I want to put a arrows to you and say, this is what a best friend looks like. It's awesome. I love that picture.
I was fully invested in that moment, fully invested.
Oh, so invested.
I'll post the picture for everyone to see. Yeah. Was there something different that you could identify in the lead up? Like what was if you could give one tip that changed your mindset or flipped things around for you, what would that be?
Have you with them? I mean, we worked together in the lead up to it, but having you there, honestly, like it was like having my own personal, you were my own personal coach there. That was the difference.
It was pretty special. I think all of us worked really hard to maintain the space around us in the way that we wanted. Like we had, I know Warwick's mentioned this before with me on a couple of lives, but we held the intention of it being the experience that everyone wanted it to be, which was, one that was full of joy and support and gratitude. And I think that everyone came together to maintain that in the best way possible.
Yes, for sure.
And when we felt like that was missing, then we just removed ourselves from the situation.
And we had to do that a few times.
Yeah, we did. So Robyn and I had a clinic together in California recently, but we also presented at the Western States Horse Expo, and our focus was, or the topic was, it's not about the horse, it's about you. Is that right? Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was really, again, centering on what it is that we've just been talking about, which is the transformational aspect of horsemanship rather than it being just a transactional situation. So transactional is where we are engaging with our horses or doing something with our horses with the idea of achieving a specific result. And transformational is where you really see horsemanship as a life practice, the ability to develop internally and externally in ways that benefit both you and your horse. And you recently took that to the next level. You've been to Brené Brown's training as a Dare to Lead facilitator. How was that? I'm so keen to catch up with you on this.
That was incredible. Warwick got me listening to Brené Brown about 3 years ago. And I've listened to every book like a couple times, and she became like my friend because I would listen to her so much in my ears. Like she was always with me. And I got to the point where I'm like, gosh, I wonder how can I like learn more directly from her? I want to learn from her. And so it was one of those universe God moments. I went onto the website and it showed that she had this facilitator training called Dare to Lead, which was about her new book. So focused on it takes all of her research and she did research with companies as well. And so puts it into a leadership context. And so I looked it up and saw that she has these trainings, and you had to have, it's either for therapists or people with a strong HR background. And luckily I had enough of an HR background to apply for it. And I didn't know how many people would apply, and I didn't know if I'd get accepted, and ended up, I did get accepted, and she's only doing 4 trainings. There's 100 people in each. Come to find out, there were like thousands of applications. So I feel really, really quite proud that I was accepted in, and I went to her training at the end of June, and it was 2.5 days where she facilitated the entire thing. They have a workbook and a 16-hour curriculum that they walked us through, complete with facilitator guides and a slide deck. And we talked about how to bring organizations, leadership groups through these 16 hours of work. And so I am integrating it with, I haven't taken the leap to start advertising for the 16-hour curriculum. I'm not sure that's where I want to go, but I am integrating it into a women's retreat that we're doing coming up in August, and the Cultivating Confidence clinics that Jane and I will be doing in the future. I'll be integrating stuff into that. So yeah, it's very exciting. It's great information, very, much self-awareness and I think the guts of it is that if you can improve yourself, you'll improve in every area of your life, including as a leader.
Yeah, some of her talks, I mean, all of her talks, actually, I don't want to say some of them, all of them are completely illuminating. And it's really interesting to me how this discussion around worthiness is so inclusive of everything that we do. You know, like if you start from that foundation of feeling not worthy, how that feeds into every aspect of your life in such detrimental ways.
Yep. And everybody feels that.
Yeah.
Even the CEO of XYZ company that's $1 billion company, they doubt their worthiness.
Yeah, it's a new devil situation often, isn't it? That we think that these people that we perceive to be in positions of power or ahead of us, you know, we think that when you get to that place that you'll have it all together or you'll feel a certain way, but actually it's a shared condition that we all need to navigate, that feeling of being an imposter or not being worthy or not being good enough. I know that's one of the central beliefs that I'm dealing with time and time again in my own work. And that people are often surprised to hear is so common, you know, is actually just a part of our makeup, sort of the shadow side, I guess.
Yep.
No, it's very cool. I'm excited to be doing some clinics together with you.
Me too.
Yeah, we're hitting Australia soon, but we were just discussing it before we came on to record this about how it's going to roll and what format it's going to take. And so what's in store for you moving forward, do you think? Is it a combination of all different elements, or competitively with your horses as well? What would you like to be doing with them?
Well, so straight away, I'm putting it out there, so I guess it's got to happen now. The reining community has a brand new big supporter in Paramount Network over here in the United States. It's one guy really named Taylor Sheridan, who was the writer and producer of Sons of Anarchy. So if you've ever seen that very popular show, he is a reiner and he loves the sport. And so he has he's got a new series coming out called The Last Cowboy, and it follows around 8 of our top reining competitors, like a reality show. Yeah. And it culminates in this $1 million class that they're going to have in Las Vegas in August. And while I am not one of those persons, I do have the ability to qualify for a non-pro class. And it's a really big money non-pro class. And so those qualifying classes are next week. So that is my immediate goal with the horses, is that I'm going to do that and try to qualify for that class. Because I want to be part of that event. That event it's something we've never had, and I think it would be really cool to be a part of it at whatever level I can. And
that's so exciting.
Yeah. Beyond that, I'm not sure reining's in my future. The obedience part really does. It's starting to weigh on my mind a little bit, even though my horses are awesome and they're so easy and they're so willing and they're just lovely horses. Yeah, I'm rethinking that whole thing and what maybe I want to do next.
You're open to possibilities.
I am open to possibilities, yes.
I just had this flashback in my mind of getting prize money at the events that I used to compete at in Australia when I was younger, and you'd open it up in a little envelope. We used to get these little yellow envelopes, and you'd open it up and it'd be like $12, and it would be like you hit the jackpot, even though the entry fees were probably $30. It felt so exciting to get that money back.
Yes, I get that. In 2016 I showed 2 horses, and my goal was to pay for my way. So I needed to win what it would cost, and this is just an entry fees, because that's all I could do. I couldn't pay my travel fees and my hotel fees and all that. I did fairly well in that year. I did pay for my way, but
that's really cool. Oh, good luck for the shows next week. I can't wait to hear how that goes. When is the actual big event?
Middle of August. So the 5th, I think, like in a month exactly from now.
Okay, awesome. So this is not something that we've discussed in a little bit tangential, if that's a word, but anxiety is something that I'm constantly having conversations about and is probably the top player when it comes to mood states that people experience as riders, kind of in and out of the saddle, frankly. And I know that you have had or been quite open about your own adventures with anxiety. Would you be willing to share that with us now to talk a little bit about it? Because I think your story will really help other people in terms of understanding what it is they might be experiencing and being able to action some awareness and solutions around it.
Sure. About 5-6 years ago, no, I guess it's been 6 or 7 years ago now, I've always had anxiety. The first time I really recognized what it was about a year into our marriage, when I woke up in the middle of the night having a panic attack and thinking I was dying. And I told Warwick, I'm dying. You need to take me to the emergency room. And we lived in a place that emergency room wasn't real easy to get to. So it was quite a feat to get to the emergency room. And got there, and the doctor said, you're not dying. You're having a panic attack, and here's some medication. And so I did go on medication. I was on medication probably for 10 years for anxiety. I don't like taking medication, so I tried to not take it when I didn't have to. And I think I had it under a little bit of control for a while, until about 6 or 7 years ago, when it really ramped up. And looking back now, knowing what I know now, it was all hormonal. That's what really kind of sparked it to become worse again. But it was getting in the way of work. It was getting in the way of the competing. I was having trouble sleeping the night before I'd show. And if I thought about the class, I'd get physically sick. And I was leaving, had to call my mom a few times to come pick me up at work because I was having a panic attack. And so it was getting in the way of things. And somebody had told me, this is actually Petey, my horse now. We bought him from a lovely lady named Anna, and she had show ring anxiety. And so she had started doing this thing that turns out later to be like cognitive behavior therapy, or it's just a breathing technique where when you're not anxious, you think about something to get you a little bit anxious, and then you do these breaths and it brings you back down to relax. And so I kind of toyed with that a little bit, and I didn't know how much it helped until I was on a plane in Canada with Warwick. And I should back up and say that most of my anxiety is always triggered by a physical, like mine is triggered physically. So it's if I feel something that concerns me that I've never felt in my body, it triggers me to have a panic attack, other than thinking about the showing and stuff. But so I was on this plane, and the plane was kind of rocking, and it was making me a little dizzy. And having had vertigo in the past, it triggered the, oh my God, what if I have vertigo on a plane? And Warwick was asleep, didn't want to wake him up. And so I started breathing. So I started the thoughts started down that panic attack avenue. I started doing the breath work, and it got me out of it. Like I did not have a panic attack. And so I realized then what a great thing that was. And it really helped me. And then you've given me other techniques since that have helped even more. But thinking about being physically ill before I show to being at the World Equestrian Games and feeling awesome, and I didn't feel nervous at all. It's a huge jump in 5 years. So if there's anybody out there that is dealing with anxiety, you can, if it's not if it's not a clinical, right, if there's a word for that, like if it's not a clinical disorder, it's truly, panic attacks and things that you can't, I don't know how to say that, but there's a difference between having a diagnosis of something and having panic attacks. And you can totally get it under control, because if I can, anybody can. And it really hit home when you explained the emotional equation and why it works to do the breath or to do meditation or breathing, because it changes that three-pronged equation of focus, self-talk, and physiology. So once you break one of those, it's no longer anxiety. And you also mentioned something else about anxiety and excitement. They feel the same way in our body. It's just the self-talk. So that helped me as well. So instead of going, I'm anxious about the show or I'm anxious about this, I would change it to I'm excited. When I felt those feelings, I would say that's excitement. That is not anxiety. And that really helped.
Yeah. The interesting thing about anxiety is that in terms of the thought process, it's contextual. So what we experience in the case of excitement and anxiety physically, so similar, you get an increase in heart rate, the blood rises to the surface, you might get slightly sweaty hands or a flushed face, or, any kind of experience that we would really recognize as being excitement. The same happens in the experience of anxiety. It's just how we think about it, or how we interpret it, that allows it to escalate or de-escalate. So that's a hugely powerful framework to realize that you actually have the choice about how you're interpreting the physical symptoms and the consequences of that, or the choices and decisions you make about that moving forward. And that was really, that was a big factor for me when it came to understanding anxiety and being able to manage it also. The somatic experience is really interesting too, and it is super important to think about why the anxiety is arising. So for you, that hormonal understanding is, that's huge, isn't it? And so many of us, especially women, we really underestimate how a balanced system allows us to have a balanced mind. And when that gets out of whack, just what can go wrong. But it's such a credit to you, everything that you have actioned and actually put into place to get from, like you say, being physically sick the night before a competition to being a chilled cucumber at the World Equestrian Games.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Did you feel nervous or anxious before you went in? Was there an experience of that, or did you feel, in terms of competing at WEG, was that?
I think I got butterflies once or twice that whole week. No, in the warm-up pen going in, that's usually, and the night before I usually didn't sleep, but I slept fine. The day of, I felt great. I didn't feel nervous. And if I did, I just switched it to excitement, and I felt great.
The skill base of it as well, in terms of actually arming yourself with the tools to be able to implement in situations like big pressure events, like potentially WEG can't be underestimated, because I know a lot of the messages that I get come on a Friday night before a Saturday morning competition where it's like, I feel nervous, what can I do? And I think if you can think of training your mind and really being able to understand and navigate your emotions as a practice, then you can avoid those emergency firefighting situations which you might feel completely out of control in usually, and have the capacity to be able to not only find a way through, but actually enjoy the experience.
Yep. I remember calling you from a show earlier in the year, and I did just that. I said, Jane, I need you. I'm nervous. What do I do? And you walked me through something that really helped. So it was just, it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not just one thing. It's a layering of skills, and I credit you to layering me up.
Oh, it's been awesome to be part of your adventures. That understanding, I feel like, is a liberation as well. And it, just harking back to what we talked about previously, the new level, new devil situation, it's something that when you're expanding the parameters of your comfort zone, quite often the familiar lurgies come up in our mind, the self-doubt or the fear or the anxiety. And it is a matter of being able to close that gap between the awareness of what's happening, or recognizing that perhaps your mind is taking you in a direction that isn't serving you, and being able to be proactive in redirecting your focus or managing your self-talk, or, utilizing the physical skills that you talk about, like the breath, to be able to get you to a better feeling place. So it's not so much that you don't ever experience the things that perhaps you don't want to experience again once you have learned how to deal with them. It's just that you can more swiftly see yourself through to the other side and perhaps experience that in a matter of minutes rather than a matter of days.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out today. It's always amazing to talk with you.
My pleasure.
And if everyone or anyone listening wants to find you, where can they do so?
I'm still just hanging out with Warwick, so I'm on on his website. I have my little page on there that's still yet to be totally defined, but so WarwickSchiller.com is where they can find me.
And your blog is on there as well, Along for the Ride?
Yeah,
is that in the same place?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. So WarwickSchiller.com, you can find Robyn's blog Along for the Ride on there and learn all about her leadership practices as well. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jane.
That's it from us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out. If you want to learn more about Robyn or read her blog Along for the Ride, you can do so by visiting www.warwickschiller.com. A reminder that we are having a competition over on Instagram. So if you jump on my Instagram page at confident_rider, you can see all of the details there. Have a fabulous day, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you in the next episode.